This is Sports 225.
I'm excited. I get to talk hoops in the summer with new LSU basketball coach Matt McMahon, who is not only taking over the program, but Matt, I wanted to start by telling you a story that I remember from covering LSU myself in the transition year from when Dale Brown retired and John Brady took over. So Dale left with a somewhat depleted roster at that time. And so John obviously inherited a bare bones operation. And Kermit Davis, who I know you know, is his assistant coach at the time. And they had like 3 meetings. And every time they had a team meeting, a player quit. There was this one story about one kid just stood up and took off all of his LSU stuff and walked out of the room. So Kermit looks over at John and says, "John, maybe we better stop having meetings." So in your case, I know you haven't had that, but you did inherit a somewhat bare cupboard that you've had to replenish. And so I guess let's start there with the rebuilding of that.
Yeah, it was an interesting 47 or 48 days there in the spring where you're sitting here with this incredible opportunity to be the head coach at LSU, but you don't have any players on your roster. So fortunately, we were able to, priority number one, hire an elite coaching staff, thrilled with the people we were able to put together. And then we just went about the process of trying to put together the best roster we can. Not only for the short term, but to sustain long-term success. So, really, I've talked about it quite a bit, but there were 4 areas there. One was the retention of current LSU players, and thrilled with Adam Miller and Mwani Wilkinson and Justice Williams. They've been terrific. The second phase was the 3 players who came with us from Murray State, KJ Williams, Juice Hill, and Trey Hannibal. Those 3 guys were part of a top 20 team in the country last year, won 31 games. They understand the culture we want to build. And then we added 3 other players through the transfer portal. And then we were also able to sign some really good high school players in the 4th phase. So the challenge when you start with 0, you have to balance your classes out, Lee, and you're trying to balance out your positional needs. So really excited with where we landed. And can't express enough how excited I am about this for what for me is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be a part of the LSU family.
Well, you amazingly, and looking at your roster, you actually did balance it out. I think there's only 2 sophomores, but that's okay because in today's world, I don't even know how important that is anymore. But I think the bringing of the 3 Murray State guys is so important because not only are they decent ball players, but like you said, culture, but understanding, because your terminology is going to be different in the way you run practices and what you expect for game demeanor can flow through them, I would assume.
And I expect them to be a lot better than decent. I think, all 3 really talented. They've been on the big stage before, but I think the familiarity that you're talking about, Lee, is so important. Just understanding terminology, understanding how we practice, what the weight room should be like. What the locker room culture should be. All of those things are so important. And we need those 3 guys to step forward into leadership roles. I think that's going to be a big key for us, who ends up being the voice of the team. And you hear it all the time. Coach-led teams can only go so far. It's the player-led teams that end up maxing out. And, when you look to those candidates, I think you start with, the returners from here at LSU and the guys that joined from Murray State.
Well, the one thing you talked about too is short-term and long-term. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about you. And I was glad when LSU was looking to hire a coach, I was hoping that they would hire a guy in your mold. And what I mean by that is somebody who understands it step by step. Nothing was given to you. You didn't, you played at App State, which a lot of people here don't even know what App State is. Trust me, it's the most beautiful place you ever want to see, and it's good basketball. But you've moved up incrementally, so to speak, and then you were able to build and sustain a program at Murray State, which is my biggest gripe about the hiring of college coaches. A lot of times is you don't know if somebody can not only build but then sustain. And in your case, we'll get to that, but you bounce back from a bad year to have a great year. So my point is that after all that rambling, is that you understand fundamentally what you want to build at LSU.
Well, it's definitely a situation. I'm a process oriented guy. We have a blueprint for how we want to build the program here. Just being very honest, this was not the best short term opportunity in the country this spring. But to me, it was by far the greatest long term opportunity. When you start talking about the brand, how strong LSU is all across the country. You look at the history and tradition on the basketball side. I mean, 3 players who were on the NBA 50 at 50 team and 75 at 75 team. There have been great teams here over the years. And as I just mentioned, some of the best players ever to play the game played at LSU. You look at the passion and the pride that the fan base has in this program, being the only Power 5 school in the state. I could go on, but there was a long list of things that really excited me and my family about this opportunity here at LSU.
Well, within 300 miles of here, there's been one hell of a lot of good basketball players produced. I mean, not of all who have gone to LSU, but like and then so the basic elements are there, and plus it's becoming a national recruiting base anyway.
Well, I think so. I mean, it's it's in the area of the country that I've recruited the majority of my career. Been really fortunate to get to do this. I still can't believe it, coaching college basketball for a living, but this will be my 27th year in college basketball. And to get to be here at LSU is really special for me. And with the coaching staff we've put together, with the tradition, with the fan base, I think it puts you in a unique position to recruit some of the best players all over the country. And that's one of the big draws here to LSU for me.
Well, Matt McMahon started in basketball the year after we started what was then Sports Monday and is now Sports 225. And we'll continue visiting with him right after this break.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Back on Sports 225, hanging out with Matt McMahon, the first-year LSU basketball coach who takes over a program. We talked in the previous segment about, restocking the team, so to speak. Hey, so you're a kid growing up in Tennessee. What was your basketball viewing like? Like, who did you watch on TV then, and who were the influences on you, and who did you root for? Were you a Vols fan, for example?
Really unique. I did grow up going to Tennessee games with my dad, but from a great sports town, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, small town there near Knoxville. A lot of elite players have gone on in multiple sports. My high school team, for example, our starting point guard was the starting defensive back at Florida. One of the other guards on the team was the starting tailback at Alabama. So just grew up in a great sports town. And then, really kind of crazy. My dad, him and a group of their friends, we would travel every year to a different NCAA tournament site. And just started off as a diehard college basketball fan and followed that passion into my playing career and then ultimately into coaching. But I've told the story since I got here. I was 12 years old. I'll never forget it. I was watching. My dad took me to watch LSU and Tennessee play there in Knoxville. Coach Brown's team, they were loaded, and Chris Jackson scored 49 points. Now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, and it's from that point on, seeing him live and what he could do. He was my favorite player growing up, and so now 3 decades later here. Coaching at LSU is really special for me.
I was at the Advocate then, and I picked up the beat at the end of what was then Chris's freshman year. And then, of course, his sophomore year was Shaquille's freshman year. And you would see something on the basketball court every game that you had never seen before, because one of them was going to do something that was incomprehensible because of, Mahmoud's unbelievable skill set. And there had never been anybody like Shaquille. And every once in a while he would do something and you go, how did a man that big do that? But to your point, it was a really fun time, both for LSU basketball and the SEC, which I assume you followed the SEC pretty closely.
Oh, of course. Grew up following all the SEC sports. Have always, loved the league. But you look back, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, 30 points a game as a freshman. He almost scored 1,000 points his freshman year alone. And I remember watching Coach Brown's team against Loyola Marymount, the 148 to 141 game. It was just such an entertaining style of play. It made a great impression on me. And then when you started to hear Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf's story, how he worked, how he lived in the gym, how he was just so committed to becoming the best player he could be. As a young kid, that was inspiring to me and made me want to live in the gym and outwork the competition and see how far I could go in the game of basketball.
That's pretty cool. That Loyola Marymount game, by the way, I chart every play when I covered basketball, and my hand hurt when that one was over. And then, of course, there's a story about the electric typewriter actually started smoking and got destroyed during that game that the SID person was using. Did you play other sports?
I did. I played soccer all the way through high school. Grew up playing that. Got to, travel the country and even across to Europe. Some playing. So that was great for me. But basketball and soccer were my things. I love football. Diehard football guy. But you're talking to a guy who weighed 155 pounds as a senior in high school. So that wasn't going to be my calling.
Well, this is something it's interesting. I talked about last week with Jay Johnson, the LSU baseball coach. He was on, and we talked about the cross training in different sports and how much it helps you as an athlete. He didn't play soccer, but I know that how much soccer helps you in other sports just because of the footwork and having to do stuff. And you were a point guard, I presume.
Yeah, point guard, more two guard. I preferred to shoot rather than pass, but I think the footwork and the conditioning. With soccer, you always hear the stories of Hakeem Olajuwon, probably one of the most skilled big men ever to play the game. And he always credits that to his soccer background. How you look at this year's NFL draft, I think like 92% of the first round picks were multi-sport athletes in high school. So, I think it's something that definitely should be encouraged amongst the youth of America today.
Listen, kids, we're talking to you, and it's true because it makes you a better athlete and it helps prevent injuries. So as an aside, and I'm always curious about this because I love to pick coaches' brains about recruiting. One thing that people tend to forget to look at when they watch athletes is their feet, because we watch the ball, especially in basketball. Can he catch it? Can he shoot it? Whatever. But how their feet move and how quick they are often determines how successful they'll be and how much they advance along to the next level.
I think critically important. I think the footwork, obviously, and then the other area that really gets overlooked is just IQ and understanding of the game, ability to process things quickly, and that's a hard trait to evaluate. But I think the competitiveness that comes from playing multiple sports, learning how to be a great teammate is such an undervalued tool. And becoming the best player you can be. So, I think the recruiting processes we try to go through based on our combined experiences over our careers here, you're always trying to focus on those things that separate players. I mean, we can all walk in the gym and see who can play and get a general framework of who the talented guys are on the floor. But what's going to separate players when they get to the next level, and things like basketball IQ, footwork, competitiveness, what kind of teammate they are, those type things end up becoming the key traits that'll separate the good ones from the greats.
I got a question to follow up on that, but not until after we take this break. He's Matt McMahon, the new LSU basketball coach. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential Southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Back on Sports 225 with Matt McMahon, the LSU basketball coach. And in the last segment, you talked about recruiting players and the things that you look for. But there's two elements to that have changed so much. The first is your ability to get to know players and their families because of all the restrictions put upon you make it tougher. So a lot of times you get a kid and you're hoping, and you can only gauge so much. And then the other is the transfer portal. You can't possibly know the kids who come through the transfer portal. So you have to rely heavily on who you know and what they tell you. Is that fair?
No, very fair. And that was one of the big challenges this spring in recruiting. I'm big on the relationship piece in recruiting. Has to be very genuine. Families entrusting you and your coaching staff to help their son become the absolute best he can be on and off the court. And it was a little bit of speed dating this spring. Just didn't have the time. The transfer portal has really sped things up. But I think for us, we're working to have this hybrid model. I still want us to have those long relationships like I have with a KJ Williams, who we recruited for 2 years and have coached him for 4. This is my 7th year with him. I think that enables you through the strength of that relationship to really do special things together and have those type of players in your program. But then you also have to have the use of the transfer portal to where you stay older and more experienced. And so I think we're trying to learn as we go what that best model is going to be. But for us, if you look at our team last year at Murray State, of our top 8 players, 4 were foundational guys that we had in our program for multiple years, and 4 were first-year transfers out of the portal. And we were fortunate it all meshed together well. Chemistry was great. Culture was awesome. And we were able to do special things. And we're still trying to fine-tune that hybrid model as we move forward.
Well, I mean, if I had told you when you got into coaching that you'd be dealing with a free agency, wild West transfer portal and NIL, I don't even want to go into NIL today, but, your learning curve is so much different than it was as a coach, 20 years ago. So, yeah.
No, it's different. It's different. The technology is different. And we can go down the line. Yeah, the goal is to be constantly evolving and getting better as a coach and changing your processes to give your program the best chance to be successful. And so you have to embrace all of these changes. The crazy thing is it's all happening at once. The NIL, the transfer portal, the bonus year from the COVID season. All those things, conference realignment. So you have to be ahead of the game. And
the conference
we're using all of these tools to the best of our ability.
The conference realignment will blow your brains out when you start thinking about it. So you can't. So like 2 years ago in the COVID year, you went 23-9, and then the season got cut off. And then the next year, pretty rough season at 13-13. What was the key to bouncing back last year and being 31-3 and reminding people 31-3 includes the season-ending loss? So you're talking about a 31-2 season, which is pretty damn impressive.
No, I appreciate it. I really didn't put any stock in that COVID year. It was, for some programs, it ended up going okay. For us, it was a miserable existence. We missed a lot of time. We didn't have our summer or fall workouts. Some of the similar things everyone else went up against. I'm certainly not making excuses, but because of all of those things, the culture wasn't what we had built there at Murray State. And so as soon as the season ended, we buried it. We made the changes necessary to move our program forward. And that's how we always approach it. And, it was a special year. The transfer portal was good to us. We brought in 4 players who made an immediate impact. We had some elite players and Juice Hill, Tevin Brown, and KJ Williams, who really took a huge leap forward. And because everyone was bought in and the alignment was good, it gave us the chance to do special things. I thought what really got us going was we were at Memphis and we were down 14 at halftime and came out and hit 10 threes in the second half, went on to win the game. And that really propelled us forward onto a magical year.
Whatever you said in that halftime speech, I hope you bottled it and saved it for repeat.
Yeah, no doubt. It was a fun season. I think sometimes when you see a crazy year like that, where a team was, 20-0, I think it was the 9th team in the last 30 years of college basketball to go 20-0 in their league play. You see the 31-3, all of those things, and you think it was just smooth. But it wasn't. We won 5 games where we came back from double-figure deficits. We just had a special team that found ways to win, regardless of the circumstances.
Come on, you just rolled the ball out. Whatever. We got to take this break. He's Matt McMahon, the LSU basketball coach. I'm Lee Feinswag. We have time for one short segment left on Sports 225.
Who says you need a vacation for a view like this? Or, I wish there was a place to get in shape. Try getting on the beaten path. Discover an ever-expanding network of trails and greenways. Some quintessential southern beauty. Or romp through the woods in a magical land between the rivers. There's more to explore than you ever imagined. Beyond the swing sets. Breck, we are more than a playground.
Coming down the home stretch of another Sports 225, go to sports225.com for when all of our show listings are on Cox4/YourView. And one of these days, you never know, I might even archive some of the old YouTube ones because I'm so far behind on that. But that's another story. Matt McMahon's here. He's the LSU basketball coach. And, you get in your own bubble. So while you're at Murray State, but did you follow the whole national picture, and are you up to date on the SEC? Like, did you follow along as one, or have you played catch up, so to speak?
No, I think you always keep an eye on it. And, through non-conference scheduling, we had some great games with Auburn over the last 5 years. We played at Alabama. So you're familiar with the league, especially with it being the best in the country. So there'll be a lot of learning, though. We've spent a lot of time this offseason studying the great teams in the league. Obviously, you have Hall of Fame coaches at multiple schools, studying them and really getting prepared for the season ahead.
This league has really upgraded itself the last decade, and it shows in the form of coaches. So now you're one of them, so.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I think you can have that balance. I've always talked about it. I'm a diehard college basketball fan. Always have been growing up. It was a dream of mine to play in the NCAA tournament. Got to do that at Appalachian State my senior year. And then I clearly wasn't good enough to play anymore. So that led me into this coaching profession. And, the fun part in it for me is getting to compete against the best, not only in the country now, but some of the best coaches in the history of the game that are in this league. And so it's exciting, obviously a great challenge. But if you're a competitor, that's what you want to be a part of.
No, I mean, what a great opportunity, both for you personally and professionally. And, I think you're going to be pretty good, but no one's expecting you to be. So that's a perfect situation.
Oh, I'd pick us dead last. I'd pick us 14th in the SEC. No doubt about it. I mean, we didn't have a team.
All right, stop. Don't cry for Matt McMahon. They're going to be okay. Hey, man, this was really fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Lee, enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Go Tigers.
Thank you for watching Sports 225.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story.